Nobody be alarmed because Jake and Elwood are on a mission from God. I can't stay. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss the Blues Brothers. Now this movie is from 1980 and it stars John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. Now before we get into all things, it's 106 miles to Chicago, we've got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it! I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that. Then we're going to come back and discuss, were they really on a mission from God, or were they just simply agents of chaos? When I tell you they wrecked and ruined everything within the 10-mile radius in this movie. Everything and everyone walking was collateral damage.
Go back.
Now that you guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me, let's get into this movie. But before we jump into the film, I have to give a shout out to the person who paid for and requested it. So if you happen to get the band back together by any means necessary, it's not because of me, it's because of this person right here. Thank you so much for supporting me and paying for this content. Now, getting into this movie was directed by John Landis, one of the great writers and directors of our time, doing movies such as An American Werewolf in London, Animal House, Coming to America, and the Twilight Zone movie. This movie would also mark his second time working with John Belushi and his first time working with Dan Aykroyd of many, going on to work on Spies Like Us, Trading Places, and the Blues Brothers 2000s. This was also Dan's very first time writing a script, and it helped him fine-tune his skills to write many others, such as Coneheads, Ghostbusters 1, and Ghostbusters 2. Now this was also really my first time ever fully watching this movie. I've thrown it on and I've tried to get into it before, but it never really just connected with me. The Blues Brothers characters, Elwood and Jake, were created by Belushi and Aykroyd for SNL around 1976. Now I myself, being a 90s kid, I never really got into SNL as far as a sketch comedy show that I enjoyed. There were little jokes and situations here and there, but I was definitely a Mad TV girl. It was a bit more contemporary, risky for the time, and funnier in my opinion. But I also wasn't blind to the fact that these characters are iconic to a lot of people. The songs, the suits, the shades, the personas are a part of the culture. Dan and John were able to make these characters so memorable that they are not only a part of their legacy, but also a part of SNL's. And even becoming much more than that. I had no clue that around 1978, we released Briefcase Blues, and it was a whole freaking album. This was actually a fully realized band, with covers of classics like Soul Man, I Can't Turn You Loose, Messing with the Kid. This album not only sold well, but it went double platinum and spawned 2 movies. I also really appreciated the fact that they not only paid tribute and respect to these artists, but they also paid money, royalties, and publishing to these artists, with them doing covers of soul, rhythm and blues-esque music, aka black music. These songs are written and performed by artists like Otis Redding, Junior Wells, and Floyd Dixon. And of course, we could go on and on about how black artists of that era were ripped off, not paid enough, if they were paid anything at all. White artists coming along, profiting off of the music, singing the same song, using the same riffs and the same instrumentation. And here they were sure not to just appropriate and capitalize, but really appreciate these artists and their music. They genuinely had a love for them and what they did. That is so dope. Now this movie is just a non-stop car ride from the moment that we meet the brothers and get into their mission. First we meet Jake. Jake Blues, fresh off of a stint in prison, getting picked up by his brother Elwood, and a police car of all things instead of their Bluesmobile. You know what? I really like it. I really don't like it, but it has promise and it has hops. And for Elwood and Jake, their car needs to have some hops. Not out 5 minutes before the mission and task at hand is received from the Penguin, Sister Mary, who raised them in the Catholic orphanage that will be shut down if they can't come up with $5,000. But it needs to be a good $5,000, not $5,000 that Elwood and Jake way through theft, lies, deceit, and deception. Get it the honest way and remember where you came from, all while finding the inspiration to get right with God. Now, even though there's a lack of concern, especially on Jake's part, they can't help but be motivated when they see Curtis, a father figure that clearly took the orphans under his wings, introducing them to the shades, the suits, as well as the music. Portrayed here by the legendary Calloway, like scat singing, Cotton Club, band leader, swing era, hidey, hidey, hidey ho. Like, it was really nice. It was really, really nice to see him here. I believe that this was the last appearance that he made in a film. Such an influential performer from those early stages of jazz and, bands and orchestras. The first Black person to ever have a syndicated radio show. The first Black person to sell 1 million copies of a record. Just so many firsts. The movies, the personality, the voice, just so many things that makes him stick out. Like, I just feel like dude needs a movie and that he's not talked about enough. I low-key feel like he invented swag. Like, the swag was on fleek from day one. Speaking of legendary, Curtis leads us to the pastor, James Brown. I was all here for Dan and, the performance, the Blues Brothers, Jake and the whole nine, Elwood. I loved all of that, but I would be bold as lying if I said that I wasn't truly sticking around for the legends that we get to see in this movie. There were just so many. And even just to get into a little bit of history with the film, really wanted more contemporary artists, wanted to get into some disco artists and leave the soul legends, the rhythm and blues legends that are in this movie where they were. Feeling like nobody here was relevant enough to get people interested in the movie. Though the Blues Brothers are interesting enough on their own, I'm all here for Jake seeing the light. What light? The light! We need to get the band back together to earn that $5,000. A bulk of my interest here lies in the fact that we get to see Calloway, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, so many others that are just legendary and no longer with us. I love the fact that they're all here together, they all get to perform, and Dan fought for all of them to be here. Nothing against other artists, but I don't feel like this movie would have been what it was, and it would have been totally out of place for them to be on a mission from God and us stop from place to place, and we got to hear some disco or some rap. It would have been yeah. And then you get into things like this film's budget constantly fluctuating. The studios wanted to make this movie for about $12 million, which quickly escalated into almost $30 million. Though this movie was really successful, they had a doubt that it might not be. But you had people like John Landis and Dan Aykroyd steady pushing, like, no, we need this, we need this. You know what? No, we need a whole church full of Black people catching the Holy Ghost and dancing everywhere. There were so many Black people in this film. When I told you I was here for it, even though a lot of them were background characters dancing, there were some in the band, like the church scene, the scenes on the street, the stunt work, the choreography. It was low-key reminding me of The Wiz, and I was here for it. Jake and Elwood being a part of the Rhythmless Nation, catching the spirit, backflips, two-steps, all up and through the Black church, really opens you up as to why you like them or even get into these two characters at all. They literally have a car, 2 suits, and the smallest living quarters I've ever seen to their name. They're not the best singers or dancers, but they have great and genuine charisma. Some type of hold or persuasion, this know-how, all while really low-key doing nothing at all. Though a little loud, nonchalant, annoying, they are who they are no matter what, wherever they go, and leave a lasting impression to the point that everybody seems to know who they are. Now, some of this notoriety is through their band, a love for their music, and what they do on stage. The other half is based on their behavior, being notorious, not the best people, and normally crossing somebody somewhere the wrong way. But I did enjoy the whole idea of being on a mission from God, so there's no way that we could ever fail, all while they low-key don't have a chance in hell of actually making this happen and getting that $5,000 for this orphanage. But things just start to flow and happen anyway, as if they are really on a mission from God, and this whole situation has been blessed from the beginning. And once we get into their enemies, the boys were definitely anointed. And then we have all of these biblical references throughout the movie. You know, we have the nun, the church, Jesus on the cross, Jake being released from prison. It literally looks like he's walking out of the gates of heaven. It fades to white. And then we get the title cards between the ex-girlfriend / scorned bride who has a vendetta against Jake, as well as his brother for being stood up, who tries to kill him with everything from a flamethrower to a freaking bazooka. The local policemen who are constantly after them due to Elwood's expired everything and all of his numerous violations. John Candy, the probation officer, the protesting Nazi group who doesn't like the fact that the boys drove through their demonstration. As we journey through with them getting the band back together to get this $5,000, the tally of enemies out to get, kill, arrest, or assault the Blues Brothers increases. But it's okay. You know why? Because they're on a mission from God. There was really a lot to be enjoyed here with this film, especially when you get into Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. They have really great chemistry together and bounce off of one another in the best way. Especially when you get into John Belushi. I had never really watched him before, but seeing him here, he has this natural it factor. This flair, this style of comedy that he's so good at that you could just watch him do nothing. He's funny at just being who he is. Which is funny because he was so heavy into drugs by the time of this movie that he needed a wrangler there on set 24/7 to make sure he got through a scene without disappearing somewhere to run off and go do drugs. Now, he ended up dying 2 years after this film of an overdose, and he definitely reminded me of a Richard Pryor, a Robin Williams, or a Chris Farley, some of the most tortured, unhappy, traumatic comedians can deliver the happiest, most fulfilling, most memorable, original comedy. I also really enjoyed the era we are in this film. 1980, there is not an ounce of CGI anywhere to be had. Every single stunt, every single explosion, every single just collision is real. No expense was spared. Car pileups, we are driving through a real actual mall. Excessive stunt work, real cars dropping from the sky. This movie was on record for the most cars destroyed in a film like ever. Even when we get into like that last scene, which I believe cost like $2 million, there's just so many extras everywhere all the time. This is such a full movie. We don't get movies like this no more. All the collateral damage that you see everywhere, like I love the fact that nobody ever really dies. Like it's not just them being on a mission from God and being untouchable and nonchalant about it all throughout the movie, but every single time we have something happen that is massive, miraculously, nobody actually dies. The pursuit to get the Blues Brothers just becomes that much more heated. But in the midst of that, aggressively, by any means necessary, we not only get the band back together, but we get to see Aretha Franklin and tell her man, you better think about what you're trying to do to me. We get to listen to Ray Charles, shake a tail feather, give the brothers those instruments on Faith and Consignment, just a time capsule of greatness. And then we get into the good old boys, constantly living on a prayer, never really actually having a damn plan. We eventually have to give in to the crowd with the theme from Rawhide. Rollin', 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 though the streams are swollen. Like, I just found that to be so entertaining and so funny. All the way over there with Jake being stubborn per usual. Hit him up, roll him out, hit him up. Like, I don't want to sing this shit. Roll them in right out. Like, no, this is not us. And it was never supposed to be you. You guys weren't the damn good old boys. Yet again, creating another enemy. But it's always a joy in this movie to watch them perform and interact with each other. I think everybody's favorite is probably everybody don't need somebody. Everybody don't need somebody to love. Someone to love, someone to love, someone to care. They're just magnetic, which is why we could have Jake's ex-woman roll up, who has the worst aim in the world. Everybody's aim in this movie is trash, but you know, they were anointed, so it needed to be like, oh, please, sorry, like all the begging and the pleading just to kiss her and throw her on the ground. Like, that was funny. Jake and Elwood are still not 100% good people. We blackmail, we lie, we still cause enough damage in this city to last a lifetime, all to get $5,000. Now, I really enjoyed the ending with the big show, everybody showing up, showing out, and coming through, even though there are obstacles at every single way. Like, oh, we're out of gas. Oh, like, oh my God, do we have to be out of gas and still blow up a whole goddamn gas station? But in doing that, we made good on every single promise that we made to everybody. First of all, I was all the way here for Calloway performing Minnie the Moocher and them transitioning, you know, into that iconic white suit and a little cotton club background. That was really awesome. Even down to the guys getting a deal and getting $10,000, enough to not only pay the band, pay for the instruments, but pay to save the orphanage. Now, getting into the end and us actually getting down to the notary in downtown and saving said orphanage, I did not expect all of that. The non-stop chase at 100 miles per hour, wreckage, car flips, car pileups, firemen, cops, SWATs, the army, FBI, the whole damn city on their backs. The massive stunts and car flips, like, it was just so much. I didn't expect for the last 30 minutes to just strictly be that, even though I had a good time in it, because it was ridiculous how many people were out to get these two men. And also the fact that in the film, they were always kind of 2 steps ahead. You know, this is glue. Strong stuff. I'm gonna put this glue on everything. It's really smart and calculated in their own way. I know there are 1,000 people on us at this point who want us dead. I know that we're fugitives, but this is not gonna stop us from the task at hand. We were always gonna save the orphanage and be on our mission from God. Like, all of those guns pointed at them, I was like, oh my gosh, like this ended in such a big way. So like, what did they get life? They had to get life. Like, I don't care what happened or what we saw. Somebody somewhere has to die. With all the damage that took place, they should have went down just for the damage to the city alone. That's gotta be worth a lifetime of prison. But of course, we end off with them in jail together, but doing what they love to do. Singing the songs with their band, rocking a crowd like only they can. I genuinely had a good time with this film and have a better understanding of why the Blues Brothers are so important. Well, you guys, that was my review for the Blues Brothers. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop down and tell me if you did. Have you ever seen this film? Is this a classic for you? Or did I push you, on over there to go and watch it for the first time? I look forward to reading your comments. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to share this video if you love me that much. I see you guys next time for my next review. Bye. Commissioner!